Hi there, I'm Tricia at Club Scrap. Welcome to your Legacy Page Kit workshop. Glad you're here. And I've got my kit ready to go along with my printed instructions. Of course, I always mention this, you don't necessarily need to print these out. You can just go ahead and use a tablet and save the paper for your scrapbooks. I'm going to start by setting aside all of the embellishments that came in the collection. And usually if I'm teaching in a class, I have students simply leave all of that in the bag that it came in, just for safekeeping, because little things like this can end up on the floor and missing, and we don't want that to happen to you. So now what I have left here in front of me are the photo mats and all of the papers. Let's begin by filing the photo mats. Now by filing, I mean we're going to put them into the accordion pocket file. This is definitely a Club Scrap project that's available to you. We have a starter kit and a video if you don't yet have one. But don't let not having one keep you from doing this workshop. You can just create 4 piles in front of you, one for each double page spread. All right, so this lip on the front goes underneath my trimmer base, so it's ready to go. Let's take 3 of the pink photo mats that you have. And now this pink is metallic and it has a really beautiful lineal texture to it. All 3 of them are going to go into pocket 1 and 2, along with just 1 of the teal mats, also in 1 and 2. Then we have 2 light blue mats going into pocket 3 and 4. 3 of that stunning red. It's almost like a currant red. It's so pretty. That's going to go in 5 and 6. A teal photo mat, also in 5 and 6. And then, of course, the last 2, both of them, the teal and a light blue, are going to go in pockets 7 and 8. Okay, now with the photo mats secured in their proper pockets, let's sort the papers in the order in which we'll use them. We're going to start off with the, I'm just calling it the teal print. I mean, it's blue. It's mostly in that blue teal range. So that was the name. It was really hard to name the prints this month. So that one's our first up. We're going to put that face down on our trimmer base. And then I want you to find 1 of those pink metallic. Again, it's the one with that really cool stripy texture on there that you probably can't see on camera, but it's there. And next, let's take a red metallic. And I do think this is one of my new favorite colors of all time. It's just really exceptional. And then a teal. This too, the fiber in this is, you can just see it woven in. It's so pretty. Okay, now we'll cut Cutaparts next. So let's grab the one that has the tapestry of life on it right here. Put that face down, and then the other sheet of Cutaparts in the collection will go there next. Then a pink print, so that's going to be this one. That it's the quatrefoil pattern, but I didn't want to use that term in the name. I didn't want to cause confusion. And then we'll go to a red metallic, and then the teal version. That's this one again with the more blues in it, and this regular just plain teal. The final pink. Now since this does have a texture more prominently on one side, I'm going to put that texture side facing down, so later when we flip it back up, it'll be facing the right direction. Then the other pinkish pattern, and then 2 of that pretty cloud light blue. I just love how this paper has this pressed feature to it that makes it look like it has clouds in it. All right, flipping back over now to the top one. Now, instead of trimming this print, we're going to tear it. And to help me, I've got my handy 3x14 grid ruler here. And let's see, with it print position with this lighter area in the upper left corner, I'm just going to mark a line along the bottom edge here, 3 inches from the lower left corner. That's going to be one part of my ruler will sit there. We're tearing at an angle. And then 4.5 inches from the upper right edge here, I'm just going to make a little mark. What this does is creates a pathway kind of between the main elements on the print at an angle. So now if I align, here's my one pencil mark and the other one's down over here. This is a 3-inch mark down at the bottom and the other one right at the top. And you can use your own discretion. If you want to fine tune that, you can. And now I'm going to push down on the ruler and pull this piece toward me. So I'm right-handed and I'm tearing with my right hand. You might want to switch that if you are left-handed. And now I have 2 angled pieces that are both going to go into pocket 1 and 2, but they're so big, I'm just going to take these and put them on the bottom of my pile here, and they'll be ready for me when I need them. Okay, now the pink metallic. We're going to make a couple of strips, maybe another photo mat. So we're starting out with a really big number on the trimmer base here at 11 3/4. So if you're newer to the trimmer, just always make sure your paper's aligned here at the top. And then to find 11 3/4, you would start at 11. And then each vertical column toward the left adds a 1/4 inch. So that's 11, 11 1/4, 11 1/2, 11 3/4. And it's gonna make a really skinny strip. Before I slice, I'll push down on this clear bar and then move down to 11 1/2. Now, if I'm going too fast for you and you're newer to this, you can adjust your playback speed to slow me down. And then 11 1/4. Now we're going to jump down to 10 1/4. It's not that big of a jump. 10 1/4. 9 1/4. 8. Lots of strips here. 8. 6 1/2. And 4 1/4. Okay, now notice I did not move anything that landed because we'll file all this in the order that it did land, so we don't want to mess with that. Now this piece we're going to rotate, and let's start with a cut at 10 1/2 and then 6 1/4. Okay, so this piece goes in pocket 5 and 6. And we have a square that's going to go in 3 and 4. And then we have this narrow little piece that's 5 and 6. Now I'm going to collect all the remaining pieces from the tabletop, trying to keep them in the order they landed so I can deal them more easily into the pockets. This wide piece, pocket 3 and 4. And then the next two, they're put like medium, smaller. Both of these next two go in pocket 1 and 2. Then I have two more the same size. They both go in 7 and 8. And then the remaining 3 narrow strips, 5 and 6. The next piece in the pile that we sorted earlier is that red metallic, and we are going to cut it. All right, our first number is 8 3/4. Make sure you're flush at the top and stabilized, especially with these shiny metallic papers. And then go down to 5 inches. Rotate. We'll cut at 8 and 4. And then rotate this one so it's horizontal, the one that was just in your trimmer base, and we're going to cut it at 4 3/4. And what that's going to do is take off a really tiny piece. All right, so this one goes in pocket 3 and 4. And I regret to inform you that this is a scrap. And the remaining 2 rectangles also go in pocket 3 and 4. I'm going to keep those turned separately so I don't get them mixed up. Now we have this other strip. This is currently 3 3/4 by 12. We'll make a couple of squares out of this. We'll cut at 11 1/4, 7 1/2, 3 3/4. All 3 of these are square now, and they're going into pockets 7 and 8. We did create another little scrap. Now we're going to make a bunch of rectangles that are the same size, except for the first one's going to be a scrap. So we're starting out at 11 1/2. Then 9, 6 3/4, 4 1/2, 2 1/4. Okay, let's stack everything up that we just created. This little guy that fell off the end first, that is a scrap. The rest of them are the same except for one is a little bit wider. Okay, so let's start with the skinny ones that should be on the top of your pile. One of them goes in pocket 5 and 6. 2 of them, 7 and 8. And then this last skinny one and the one that's a little wider than that, they both go in 1 and 2. And again, you had a little scrap there at the bottom. Okay, now the teal. This is going to be just gorgeous. Let's trim this at 11 1/4. And 10 1/2. Then down to 8. Oh, finally a nice whole number. And 4. Another easy whole number. Take the 4-inch piece and trim at 6. Both of the 4x6s are going to be placed in pocket 7 and 8. In this next strip, we'll cut at 9 and 6. All of the pieces you made pocket 3 and 4. Next one, we'll cut at 11 3/4 and 9 1/4. This long strip goes in pocket 1 and 2. And then you should have a square. That's for pocket 3 and 4. And believe it or not, little tiny scrap. 2 strips that are the same, pocket 3 and 4. So those are the 4 plain pieces. Now we're moving on to the Cutaparts. And at this point, I want you to remove the outside perimeter of the entire sheet to create a perfect 12 by 12. So that's a little cutting guide. You want to line that up with the edge of the blade on your trimmer. And I always mention this, but sometimes I go a little shy of the mark and then I go back and clean it up on my last rotation. So once I cut a little bit off of one end, then I can see the edge of my blade, both at the top here and the bottom that you can't see, and give it a nice clean cut. So here I'm rotating again, lining it up nicely. Trim off the edge. Another rotation. And again, I'm going to go. Now this is that last cut to make sure this is a nice, perfect 12 by 12. I've got some scraps here I can go ahead and get rid of. And now I'm going to strip this out. All right, so our first cut here, and this is making sure the words Tapestry of Life are on your left, and we'll cut at 11, then 10 1/2. And you can really just use your eye as a guide, and then going to the nearest 1/4 inch usually puts you right where you need to be. So again, that's 10 1/2. Let those pieces pile up. 10, 8 3/4, 7 1/2, 5 1/2, and 3 1/2. You don't have to make any horizontal cuts here, so that's awesome. I'm picking up the whole stack, plus we had the one that was in the trimmer base. This large Tapestry of Life one, this one goes in 7 and 8. And then the pink strip, 3 and 4. If things get better with age, then we're approaching magnificent. And then the next two, the next one. So these 2 matching strips both are used in 5 and 6. This dark blue, 1 and 2. Then we have the 2 narrow strips, both going into 3 and 4. And this last blue strip, 7 and 8. If I'm going too fast, which maybe I am, all of that mapping is on these instruction sheets. So you can see what it looks like and what pocket it belongs to. So if you need to pause me and rewind, you can do that. Is it still rewind when you're on YouTube? I think it might be. Or you just look at the map. Now we need to repeat that whole process of turning this into a 12 by 12 by trimming away the edges. And if you're wondering, the reason we do this is because on those large format commercial printers, when they crop with a bleed like this, it's never quite as accurate as we need it to be. So that's why we have to do this last little step for ourselves. So everything aligns perfectly on the cut apart grid. Okay, now we have this blue strip should be on the right with these larger elements on the left. And that, by doing it that way, we always have as much paper as possible resting on this guide to keep it nice and level at 90 degrees. Okay, so our first cut here is going to be, again, at 11, then 9 3/4, then 9, 8 1/4, 6 1/4, and 4. Now rotate. Let's cut off the red on the end here at 10 3/4 and 6. Okay. This large one goes in pocket 7 and 8. And this next smaller one, 3 and 4. And the little red one, 5 and 6. Now the next strip needs to be trimmed, so we're going to place that in. The lid for the moment should be legible upright, and then we'll trim at 9. If you happen to have one of the corner chompers, this has a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch radius. So if you open this little notch and you make sure you punch on the 1/4 inch radius, you can do this now. Just make sure you align that corner into the feeder here. And you got the corners, the radius matches with the artwork here. Now this piece goes in pocket 1 and 2. And then you have this little tag that fell off the end. And then I'm going to show you a quick trick here. You can take your trimmer and just clip off the corners so your tag is ready to use. Now we're going to mat this tag later on, so you'd have to do the same thing with the mat as well. Or like what I did this time was used a craft knife and cutting mat to make sure that the reveal and the angle was flawless. Okay, this goes in pocket 1 and 2. Now these next pieces we're going to trim into equal sections. We'll start at 9, 6, and 3. Filing these, we're going to have a horizontal prompt here for journaling that goes in pocket 1 and 2. And then we have a vertical one to go in 5 and 6. Another vertical for 7 and 8. And then preserve your memories, 7 and 8. The next are just, we got 2 strips here. The pink ones, they both go in pocket 7 and 8. This next one we need to trim. So make sure the word love is on the right, and we'll cut at 10 3/4 and 9 1/2. Finally, 6. That's, I think, gonna be your last cut. Okay, and on this one, you'll notice that the corners are kind of cut out. You can probably get like a reverse corner rounder, but if you're in a bind, you can use a little punch. And I found that this really pretty little punch has a radius that really looks nice with what's there. So all I did was bring that little window so you can see the corner, and then back away, and you've got yourself a nice cutout corner here. Someone was asking about that recently on our chat group, so I wanted to make sure I covered that for you. This is the hack. All right, that goes in 5 and 6. And then the same is the case for this journaling prompt. I won't do that now. This gets filed here in pocket 3 and 4. The joy goes in 3 and 4. And the love is going to go in 1 and 2, along with our last teal strip, 1 and 2 also. That's it for the trimming. So I'm going to get rid of my trimmer and set up for some dry fit assembly. And that means just putting things down without adhesive. All right, I'm going to take all the paper that I have left, which is a nice stack of 12 by 12s here, and I'm going to take the top sheet and put it to the right of the center of my workspace. And then the remaining pile, the whole pile, which is 7 more sheets of paper, will be on the left. And that sets up my first double page spread. Now we're going to work backwards here. So we're starting with layouts 7 and 8, because when we're done with this process, then layout number 1 will be on top, and you can easily then adhere everything from layout 1 to 8, knowing everything's in its rightful spot. So you'll need to turn in your instructions as well. This is page 4 at the bottom is 7 and 8, and you'll notice that the red metallic and the pink print are what's called for, and they're both side by side here in front of me, right where they need to be. And be mindful that this is designed to be held up when your trimmer is present and lay on its back when your trimmer is not holding it up. And then I like to consult the picture, and it's kind of like putting a puzzle together. I'm going to begin with these 3 red metallic mats and then line those across the top. And what that does is help carry the color that's so dominant on the left here over to the right side of the layout. Then with a pink strip, I can place that right underneath, creating a nice frame around those, and then line that with one of these printed strips. The other pink strip goes about quarter of the way, third of the way up maybe, and that's nested as well. Then vertically, I've got the Tapestry of Life piece here, and then this other strip with a little bit of space in between. And then we're going to take the 2 smaller mats that we have, and those are going to go here. Now the larger mat ends up being placed vertically in this spot and nested. And then you've got your horizontal lighter blue. There's some ribbon that goes through here. Then this piece has a mat, and that's going to be placed kind of in this opening. This one gets a mat as well, and that goes on the left. There's some ribbon running through here, but I'm going to go through these final details by showing you my finished layouts and kind of pointing out what's going on. So before I adhered this nested area, I went in with that ribbon and just wrapped it around and taped it on the back. Karen always uses washi tape, which I think is also a great idea, especially if you're not particularly fond of that particular washi tape. And then I accented, after attaching this, rounding the corners, of course, with the 1/4 inch radius, attached it with my favorite foam adhesive circles. Then I used bookbinding glue from a needle tip applicator to add the butterflies. Now what I do is put the glue on the paper and then add the butterfly to the glue. It's a little easier than gluing the back of the butterfly and adding it to the project. Just a little tip for you to save you maybe a little bit of a headache. Now for layout 7, here I added the fringed organza here and also ran that around to the back and then put this directly next to it. So it kind of looks like it's just edged with this cool fringe. Really cool little effect there with that beautiful ribbon. Now, this was added over the top after rounding the corners with foam adhesive. And then Jacqueline created this perfect little space, and you can see it. It almost makes it look like this is jumping right off the page. So you grab your little frame and it just nests right in there. There's an indentation. And then you could add a picture to this spot, and it's gonna look really, really pretty nifty. Okay, that is layout 7 and 8. Pretty straightforward. Oh, and I did add one cute little butterfly in that spot as a little accent. This could be a spot for a photo as well, so just be mindful. You know, if you have a lot of pictures from an event, maybe you don't want to embellish as much so you have room for all of your pictures. I'm gonna slide page 7 on top of 8 and then slide this over. In my rendition, I did have this brighter quatrefoil shape in the lower right corner. And then from my pocket, I'm going to take everything out of 5 and 6 as we move along. Let's see what's going on here. We have some little details I'm looking forward to pointing out to you with this one, but it's pretty basic. The border runs across the top. Now, I did a fake out, so there is not a wide piece of pink underneath here. It's just 2 skinny strips of pink, giving the illusion that I've matted this entire thing with pink paper. My tip for this, since my adhesive is pretty wide, I work with a 1/2 inch ATG tape. I put the adhesive on this, and of course I use my grid ruler to help me to make sure it's level on the page. Then I take my needle tip applicator filled with bookbinding glue, and I use the edge of the Cutapart to guide the tip of my applicator while I squeeze glue on. And then I set this in there, okay? I do the same at the bottom. And because it's so narrow, it's just a much easier way to adhere a 1/4 inch strip. Just make sure that's where you want it, because once it's attached, that strip isn't going anywhere. And then across the bottom, I've got kind of a repeating thing. I only used 1 strip here. And then framing that out, add the vertical metallic red photo mats. There is another metallic red mat that will pair up with this. Again, rounding the corners is optional, but makes it look kind of nice. That goes here. Now down in the lower left corner, I added 3 of these little gems. They're so pretty. Now, on this side, I'm gonna bring the pink that exists over here. Then, in between, we've got our quote and another gem. Underneath that, we'll add the red mat. So those are kind of centered up. In fact, I think I centered this at 6 inches and then put this on either side. We have a vertical mat here, and then this nests perfectly with our little sentiment. And I aligned that with the top edge of the light pink. Now in the image you're looking at, this mat is behind this piece. I want to show you this on the finished version. So you see that the mat is coming around the back. To do that, once you know exactly where this is going to be on the page, your photo mat's on top like it is here. So what I do is take a pencil and mark right where the edge of the photo mat meets the image I want to put into the foreground. So mark here, and then you can see that the image comes around here. So here, little mark here and here. Then you remove the mat temporarily, take your craft knife and cut along until you reach both pencil marks. Then you'll be able to slide this mat underneath the artwork, thus putting it into the foreground. Now maybe you're working on a project where absolutely every picture is cropped to the max. You do not want to cover up anything. Maybe it's a big group photo and there's a face down there. Then don't do this step. Leave this in the foreground. But maybe it's something where it's a big bouquet, or it's, you know, something that doesn't matter. Somebody's ankles get removed by this. No big deal. But test your photo. Also be aware that you want to keep this free of adhesive so you're able to slide your picture into the spot as well. You know, so this does remain in the foreground. This was attached with some bookbinding glue, so that's really the only other tip for that side. And then over here, again, the bookbinding glue attaches the 3 gems to match, so that balances out. Across the top, I took a hole punch, and this was before I attached this to the page, because if you do it after, you need a punch that has the ability to, like a long crocodile or something, or a Japanese screw punch that can punch something this far into the page. But then I nested the 2 ribbons and wrapped them around to the back. And that was, of course, again, just on the strip before I attached it. So it was the satin and the organza layered both, ran it through the hole and taped it right here and wrapped it around. Ran the ends through the hole and taped them and wrapped around over here, so you use a little less ribbon than you would have if you didn't do that trick. All right, that's 5 and 6. Now I'm going to take the teal, pick it up, put it on top here. Then take the next sheet, which is the pink metallic, and that gives me what I need, hopefully, for layouts 3 and 4. And the orientation of this print puts that dark burgundy color down in the lower left corner. Again, you know, your preference is whatever you want it to be. Okay, and then everything has to come out of pocket 3 and 4. Now, across the top here, let's add a narrow strip, and then there should be a mat for it as well. Okay, perfect. Then blue, some light blue. And then we come back in. So when you're adhering things, it's all about order, isn't it? I always get everything in place and I think, all right, what's on the very bottom? And then I have to scoot everything out of the way so I can add the bottom things first. Above this, or below this rather, we've got our 2 teal. So that means things need to get spread out. And again, dry fitting is valuable here, because if you just start sticking things down without first placing them, you won't have room for everything the way you want it set up. Okay, now this is going to go horizontally here. And when we trimmed the 3 red, they're all the same width, but one we cut a little bit of an edge off of it, so it's 4 3/4 wide. That width matches the other piece I put with it, and that's the only reason why I cut it off, because I wanted it to kind of fit. Then you have a square, and that square is designed to hold this. And then you have the tiny word joy, fits right in there, and a journaling prompt that I tucked behind it to match the width of these 2 items over here. Okay, then the remaining 2 would be vertical, and that's going to carry through the color to the other side of the page. A horizontal teal, kind of to balance this out. Then we have our vertical pink nested with this. And then to the left, the pink. This goes underneath the teal for a nested mat. Very nice. There we have it. Now I added a little ribbon. This two-toned red with the pink stitching on the edge. I ran it across here and above this strip to balance out, and that pretty much uses what's there. Okay, so here we have our finished page 4. This has the little butterfly here, just one of them, and then a set of 3 glued on here, and then our frame with this added as well. There's the ribbon attached. So again, thinking order, this has to go on before this, and so on. On the other side, we have the ribbon here placed directly next to the pink mat, and then we have our 2 rosettes. Now, the thing about the rosettes, we got to talk about these. They were way larger than when they arrived. I was like, wow, those are some big rosettes. Okay, so you do see how mine look a little different than the ones you received? Well, that's because I changed them up, and here's how I did it. I messed with them quite a bit because I really love them, but they were just so big. So what I did was I kind of isolated the center portion of the rosette by pushing it up. And now this is granted it's all one piece of ribbon here, but I kind of just pulled away this middle section. Now I've got the 2 layers, and now those were all combined with a little bit of a heat source there to hold them together. Once I get this sort of pulled away, I can remove it with scissors. So I'm literally hacking this into a flatter rosette so we could save the concept. How do you like them apples? You just have to decide kind of what you're going to cut away. Well, that's not very pretty, is it? So then what you do is you tuck the remnant back down into the middle of the rosette. And I know there's a little cut edge in there. You just tuck it all back down inside. But this was the only way that I thought we could get away with using it on our page. Now at the back here, if you wanted to take some glue, or, you know, again, come at it with a lighter just to sort of re-adhere all these pieces, you know, make sure it's all kind of gathered in there. You can add a little bit of adhesive and set this aside to dry. Then when it came time to add it to the layout, I just still put a bunch of glue on there and placed it in, and it really looked gorgeous. So that, my friends, is my rosette rescue. So I hope it's not too difficult. If you want to skip the step, that's fine. Or if you don't mind that it's really, you know, really kind of a larger, high profile embellishment, by all means leave it or omit it. We purchased them for the collection, and I thought they were still beautiful and thought I could find a way to make them work. So again, just remove that center part, shove the remnant back down inside after you remove it, and secure it any way you can, okay? And I did that with all 5 of the rosettes. All right, that was layout 3 and 4 with your rosette rescue, and let's move on to layout 1 and 2. Sliding page 4 over, and then here we are on page 1 and 2. We can empty the contents of page 1 and 2, and then you also need to find those angled pieces that we tore earlier. All right, so this one with the brighter area, I chose to put it in the upper left corner of page 1. This other piece goes in the lower right corner of page 2. Let's begin with a narrower strip of pink and the plain border. Then over here we have the wider strip of pink with the title strip. Down over here I have a teal photo mat, and then above it we've got 2 vertical tilted mats. Please be aware here of your tangents. Like, don't let the corner of this tilted mat touch the edge of the page here or here, okay? That's a tangent, and we kind of want to avoid it. The other thing I want you to avoid is having the bottom corners of the tilted mats touching. So the way I solve the tangent is pulling it away from the outside edges, making one of these mats higher than the other, and tilting them both slightly overlapped. Then there are no corners touching corners or edges, which is what I try to avoid from a design perspective. Okay. Then there is a tag shape in your Cutaparts, and that ends up getting clipped once it's nested. Now, I can't remember who to blame for this, but I've been cutting little slots for my ribbons in my tags, but now from good old Amazon, I bought this punch, and this is designed for name badges, but it's also perfect for creating a spot through which to thread your ribbon. It's kind of a wide spot though, so I mean, of course you don't have to have that. Again, I got it on Amazon, and it was pretty inexpensive. So this is a name badge punch. I would carry them for you as a matter of convenience, but most of you are ordering from Amazon anyway, and I can't get it any cheaper than what they're selling it for. So this goes here after threading it with some satin ribbon. On the left, we have this, and you see that mine has the word love on it. So what I did was cut away the white perimeter and added it, or you could leave it on. Maybe you could have a postage stamp edge scissors, I don't care. That's what goes there. and a horizontal photo mat here. And I think I tucked the upper left corner of the mat behind the torn paper. Now here, this nests, and you can absolutely place this on top, or you could pull that same trick I did earlier with that photo mat and make a mark here and here, cut and slide this behind. And you might want to do it before you attach this, so you're just going through one layer. I didn't do it that way. I went through both layers of paper to slide this into the background and keep this in the foreground. And then of course I did surgery on my rosettes again. So I removed that center, cut it out, and shoved the remnant down in there and secured it with glue. Otherwise you got quite a dimensional item on there. Or again, it can be omitted. Now here are the finishing touches for page 2. I did another little craft knife trick here. So I did put, as long as I had it out, I thought I might as well just put this into the foreground because I didn't want to lose it. 3 little butterflies attached here with glue, and then the ribbon wrapped and brought around to the back. Therefore I don't have any bow lumps or anything there. And then on the left side, here are my finished operated on rosettes, and then they're tucked, this strip is tucked behind, so you can see it coming through from the other side. There's my little love with the perimeter removed just to make it a little smaller. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward, I think. So that's Legacy Page Kit. Thank you so much for coming to class. So I invite you to join me this month and always for our Page Kit and Card Kit class. I've got a wonderful set of 12 cards we're gonna make with the Legacy Page Kit as well. So I look forward to seeing you over there and in the coming months. Have a good one.